Let me get this resuming. Okay, is everyone back now? And hopefully we're safe. Well, we're gonna have to like do a little security audit and make sure we're all good there. Okay, Tim, as we were saying, welcome everyone to the weekly briefing. I'm gonna spotlight myself and spotlight Tim. For those of you that are back with us, welcome. We're talking about the OFF conference, which just happened in Barcelona, ended a couple days ago. And Tim, while I was there, we did a cohort dinner, which was great. There were about 25 of our friends and colleagues and clients that all gathered and basically just said, hey, we're celebrating, right, this post-COVID era, fingers crossed, and getting together and sharing and socializing and all the rest. And you could not make it. So we thought, let's get Tim up to speed, right? Let's invite some of the people that were there to share about their experience, some of the big takeaways, and maybe some of the things that they would love for their peers to know for the folks that couldn't make it.
Yeah, and I was saying this before, is that to go to a conference in Europe, if you're a US-based company, go to a conference in Europe, it's give you so much insight into what's actually happening, trends, competitive advantages, what have you, that we don't get the exposure to necessarily in the US soon enough. But also just to like meet the community, realize this is a kind of a global movement. There's a lot of great leaders happening or taking position in the world, and such just great moments. So Joel, total FOMO the entire time you're there. I was bummed out. Not to mention I've never been to Spain, so just to spend some time in Spain would be super great.
Well, we did miss you, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually bring onto stage the folks that we invited that were there. If you were at the conference and you did not get invited in this conversation, feel free to raise your hand and I'll add you. So I'm adding Amanda, you were there with us. I'm adding Lidia. Let's see, PJ, he was there with us. Who else is here that is on tap? Oh, Joao, can I add you? Or are you not feeling well? I'm gonna just add you in case. Well, I can't add you, so maybe that's your way of saying I'm not. He said he wasn't feeling well, so we're not going to put him on the spot. Okay, so anyone else that wants to jump in, the conversation really I think is like this. PJ, do you mind if I put you on the spot first? Because, dude, I just saw you absorbing a lot that was, I'll call it directly coming from the conference, right? The things that we were seeing on stage, but then all of the things that were happening sort of behind the scenes of just connecting with people, but also being out in the world. What was this experience all about for you, and what do you want to share about it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know where to begin. I think I've been to a couple of smaller conferences already, but this one was sort of like the Disneyland of design conferences for two different reasons. They just had way more stages, and then also they kind of curated the speakers to a little bit like kind of more of a specific corner of design and animation and whatever else. Like it was like, I wouldn't say the speakers were similar, but they're all of like the same couple lanes versus like a motion graphics designer, a furniture designer, editorial journalist. It wasn't like such a leap to go from one to the other and be like, what am I, or why am I looking at this, which was really easy, much easier to kind of engage in it. And certainly for me specifically, which isn't necessarily the same for everybody else, there was a lot of competitors and or artists that I work with regularly that were either speaking or there. So that was pretty, it made it kind of easy to kind of engage in and just kind of get excited about. So like on a conference level, I thought that was really good. The other thing was just the people like that were there, both the speakers, but mainly just as viewers. Like I was able to connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn beforehand and be like, you're there, I'm there. Okay, great. Let's try to meet up. And one thing that I miscalculated severely was just that there were so many people, like there was thousands of people. So trying to like connect with people in person didn't go quite as well as I would have, or I didn't see as many people as I would have liked to, I guess is a better way to explain it. But yeah, it was really, and the presentations I thought were all really good. It was less of like, here's just my portfolio, but a lot of really thoughtful explanation to the meaning behind certain, approaches, whether it was a technical one or a creative sort of motive. So I thought that was really good compared to other conferences I've been at. And and you didn't get kind of lost in like the technicals or the, I don't know, all of them, the stuff I saw was just kind of easy to follow.
Yeah.
I have
The
to share,
Barcelona setting certainly doesn't hurt.
I have to share
Like
this one.
just on a,
I had to
you
share
know.
this one, PJ, because this was a fun little moment when everyone just kind of got into it.
Yeah, totally. You know, the thing that surprised me too, that different from other conferences I think I've seen so far or been to so far, was just how friendly everybody was. Like, even if they didn't know you, there was just sort of I don't know if it was because I was hanging out next to the people next to the bar, but people were pretty easy to just be like, "What's up? What's going on?" Whereas it's kind of more of a come sit down and leave scenario at some of the other conferences. So
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
So PJ, you run obviously a very busy, active, crazy at times studio. Why was it meaningful for you? Because you kind of last minute pulled the trigger and said, "Hey Joel, I'm coming." And I was like, sweet. Like, why was it important to just like step out of your regular element and have this experience?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think one of the things that I'm finding is that at this kind of the rapid pace and volume of stuff that I kind of handle on a day-to-day, it's really easy to get burnt out and I'm never out of ideas, but sometimes it ends up being a little bit more work to be like, what do I do here? So I really started to value these conferences to get me to sit in a room and just sort of refuel creatively and get inspiration. And I got that. I came back a lot, just sort of like, yeah, let's make some stuff. And then, but also I think the thing I didn't expect was being around so many people in person and so many different artists and studios that are pumped. It kind of brought me back just sort of an upbeatness to just studio stuff that I'm definitely returning with a new sort of focus on.
So Amanda, do you mind if I call on you and ask you, do you have like some sort of top takeaways from not just the conference, but the whole experience?
Sure. Yeah, so first I'll say Ruth is not feeling well, so she had to pull out last second. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry,
and if I have bad service, I'm still in Ibiza, as you will be corrected if you're here.
Love it.
So yeah, we're having our last hurrah right now. So it's a little bit late, but it seems like my connection is okay, right?
Yes,
great.
Doing fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we actually went kind of on a somewhat of a whim. We planned on it, but I think we've done a lot of conferences in the States and a lot of conferences in Vancouver. Blend is amazing, but we wanted to go to something big, and this was it. This was huge. It was way bigger than we anticipated. Some of the rooms were really small and some of them are really large. It's a good variety of speakers and topics. And the ones that we found most helpful were the smaller, more intimate rooms, just because I think people felt like they couldn't easily go in and out as frequently as they wanted to. They were kind of locked in. They would be noticed if they left the room. But
Yeah.
There's something special about that, that kind of makes you a community, a little micro community together. And so those were the most fun ones for us. But the most favorite was by far our masterclass with Tiago Maya.
The one and only.
Studio.
My favorite, yes, my favorite co-conspirator at Cookie.
Yeah.
He really crushed it. So, and it was all about how to win pitches and how to write, solid decks and everything. And I didn't realize it, but they're just as small as we are. Actually, they're one larger than us. They're 6, we're 5. But it was nice to kind of see a lot of similarities between us and to know that the information he was giving would really benefit us, a very small studio that handles business in a very similar way. So I was able to ask him questions, and he was like, yeah, email me. I want to help as much as possible. So the conference doesn't stop when you leave off. It kind of continues.
Is that what you kind of expect from a conference? Like, do you go there to find out more details about your business, or what's your thought process in going to start with, and then obviously there's different revelations that come out of it?
Yeah, I think my experience from going to conferences is that you don't know what you're going to glean from it, but it's always helpful. Sometimes it's just more confidence in your studio. Sometimes it's like vital information and you're like, oh my God, I should have been doing this the whole time. Sometimes it's meeting more artists that, can benefit your roster. But we kind of knew that there was value there. We just had to put in the investment. And then to be there in Barcelona, it's a win-win. You're not losing anything by really going to Barcelona.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it did not suck in terms of being a host city. It was right up there. By the way, Amanda, I couldn't resist last night. I did a dinner in London, and Tiago was there, and I shared your feedback with him, and he was almost like, really? That's awesome. Like, it was meaningful. So he was very
totally
to hear that.
Yeah, everybody loved it. We talked to other people, and everybody was kind of geeking out together. So yeah, he did a great job.
So Joao, are you able to talk with us? Are you up to it? Are you feeling well? Talk to us. He says, oh wait, it's reversed. I'll have to, what is that?
Bob Dylan this one.
Bob Dylan this one. Okay. All good, my friend. No worries. Well, you can just like give us this and this and a little bit of sign language. So we're sorry you're not feeling well. Lidia, let me call on you. What was the overall experience from your perspective?
Let me know if you can hear me well, because I moved to London 2 days ago and my internet is giving me surprises. I don't yet know this internet place.
All good.
Let me know if anything happens. But yeah, I'm at my third experience at OFF. I've been there for a couple of years now. And it's always inspiring. It's always a bit scary because unless you have like your group of people who you know from the very beginning, you kind of like have that, a little bit of imposter syndrome to go around and mingle with people. So the fact that Joel, you did that cohort actually helps a lot, because then the following day, I think everybody who was at the cohort kind of like felt more easy to like bump into each other, be like, hey, now we're joining, like the beer place with everyone and enjoying the event in a more sociable way. For me, the highlights were I just love seeing how people present themselves, their work, and how you can actually tell what a studio is and what their craft is by the way they present themselves. I've noticed several differences, as in like freelancers who are doing their first speeches or studios who are a bit smaller actually have more inspiring presentations than, like the big studios or like the big players in the market. And I was quite surprised by that, because I felt like their presentations were more humane and they put their vulnerability out there a bit more. And OFF is all about, inspiring the community and rekindling that love for the industry and for the craft, rather than just showing process. Like if you want to see process, just as Marcel was saying in his presentation, if you want to see process, you like go on YouTube or like read the case studies on people's websites, or you go to the master classes or the workshops, because that's where you go, like for the A to Z sort of experience of how to, design this or animate that. But when someone is on stage in front of a huge audience, actually the takeaway that stays with you is the emotion that you felt while you were listening to a certain presentation. So those kind of keynotes have been resonating with me personally, and I could feel that it resonates with the whole audience throughout the years. That's something that stays constant.
Yeah, there was so when we all got together, Tim, after Marcel's talk. Okay, so Marcel from State. Hi, Marcel. I wasn't able to see his presentation. I'm super bummed because I had to make preparations and everything, but everyone came over after his session. And Lidia, like you were saying, it was like the feeling that people were left with was the thing that stuck with them. What was that like? What did I miss? Yeah,
well, Marcel made people cry in the audience in a good way. It's not like he said bad things about people. No, he was humble. He put his vulnerability out there on stage. His first slide, I think, was called like Naked, which basically announced the fact that he will be very frank about in every single slide and thing that he's going to present about.
No later.
Yeah, he said things that were really relatable. Like, he credited all the team on that huge LED screen on stage. He also, called up on agencies saying, hey, agencies, if there's any agencies around here, like, please just, if you say no to someone or refuse a pitch, and I think Marcel is here, so he might actually talk about that better than me. Yeah, he just called out on things that are so relatable to everyone who is in the audience. And yeah, one of the things that stayed with me was like, hey, agencies, if you like refuse someone's pitch, just tell them the reason. Don't just like invent something like, oh, we decided to go in a different direction. Just say the actual reason, because that might make us better for next time, and we might actually know what we're doing or what we're not doing. And yeah, that's the kind of presentations that stick with me. I was surprised by Adobe's presentation, and I was saying that to you yesterday at Cohort, Joel. Adobe sort of like presented so vaguely. I mean, I don't know, maybe because they have like 80% of the market share in design software, but they were a bit vague. I think they missed a bit of an opportunity to connect with the audience who already uses their product. So that's an interesting sort of like observation for me to see who presents how. And it's usually the smaller studios and the freelancers who present for the first time that are actually like a treat to watch.
You know what, I'll say, I obviously wasn't there, but when I go to conferences and that kind of Adobe moment, it shows up where people are given a stage, there's a huge opportunity, and they just undercut it or give you milquetoast kind of a presentation. It's such a bummer where that you felt you invested your time, you created some expectation of what's there, and it just doesn't pop. But Marcel, it sounds like you did the opposite. You got naked on stage. Is that what I understand? What happened here? Are you showing off your new tattoos?
Too many tattoos. I don't know. My mom is so disappointed. Yeah, I can tell.
And Marcel, we heard about the takeaway from your talk. I'd be curious what it's like to be a speaker. What's it like to invest in that time and create that edge that you know that you're going to have to hit a mark because there's a bunch of people listening to you and they want to get some real insights from you?
I think, well, for me, thanks, Lidia, for what you said. My whole goal with the presentation was I didn't want it to create more distance between, like, it goes back to what me and you were talking a few weeks ago, Tim, creating community. So my goal was, can I speak and shorten the distance between me on stage and the people who are watching? And the way that I thought about doing that is to tell my story, which is like, people can look at studios and think that everything is so amazing, that everything is so cool because you only show the cool work. I was like, no, I've been through so much shit to get here. Like most of you, like it's just a matter of perspective. And then that's why people were like, oh my God, this is, they connected with me on that sense, because I was like, no, things went wrong so bad at State in the beginning, or even with my life. And then all I had to do, I focus on myself and the message and all of that. So I actually told them the shortcuts. And I was just trying to bring, again, to what me and you were talking a few weeks ago in Santa Monica, like, how do you build communities to shorten the distance between people? That's what the mindset was.
It's interesting because people want to imagine that's weakness, right? If you're going to expose some hardships or that it took some extra effort and it wasn't perfect from the beginning, there's something inside of our mind that says, oh, I'm sharing where I'm weak. I'm sharing that I'm not perfect. And that on-stage presence can always kind of this sheen of perfection. For you to pierce that and put yourself out there and to trust the crowd that they want to hear that and they're going to be a safe place for you to do that too. That's where community is really being built. That's pretty awesome for you to take that step. I saw PJ shaking his head too. There must have been some sort of like, yeah, community is built that way, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to echo, having been really impacted by Marcel's presentation in the crowd, and there was another one that did it very similarly in a completely different way from XK Studios. Like, you go and you sit in the crowd and you are like, okay, that's the most awesome shit I've ever seen, but how did they get there? And sometimes it seems like an impossible feat if you're standing in the crowd, because you're like, oh, everything's great. They just effortlessly work with Apple, which is bullshit, obviously. And there's so much mental obstacles that you encounter along the way to completely disarm us as viewers, like Marcel did on the emotional level, I thought was probably the best on that end that I've ever seen. And then on XK's, and they come at it with they do everything in Houdini, which is like the sort of the impossible program to try to get your head around creatively right now. And they just quickly, without making it boring, just showed you this is how we got to where we got to. This was the journey that got there on the technical side. And you're like, oh shit, okay, that doesn't seem impossible. And they just sort of dispelled mental things that beginners that don't know that particular way of working would get stuck on. So it was just two ends of it that I think made for, and there's just pretty pictures in both cases. So keeps you hooked. But I think it's just truly understanding the audience way better than just oh, here, I'm great. Look at this cool shit. Forget how hard it took to get here. And I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen, because it's not the truth at all.
Yeah, there's some all ships rise and fall with the same tide that you have to understand about your role in the community. And I love when people create the opportunity to build up others. And again, you can imagine in a competitive environment, someone trying to hold that stuff back so they keep their edge. They don't share the secrets, or someone else being so bold and so confident, they say, I'm going to show you how I did it. Because in a creative working environment, which is what we all have, there's always something that distinguishes one studio from the other. So
but I think it's how you get there is certainly one way in, but I think really understanding the audience to be how you got there mentally in Marcel's case, I think is what made it such a game changer to watch, because that's stuff you can't know, or well, you can, but no one puts in a book, you know what I mean, or a YouTube tutorial. And I think but it's the biggest thing in the world that I think holds people back sometimes from themselves. It's oh shit, he's gone through that. Okay, it somehow makes it lighter for us all to kind of navigate our challenges,
Yeah, maybe I feel like it's that moment for me that when you identify somebody on that deep of a level, on an emotional level, that it takes some of the shame maybe that you feel, some of the imposter syndrome away, because you realize we're all on the same journey, right? Marcel might be however many steps ahead or years ahead, but I'm on the same exact journey. And in a few years from now, I hope to be achieving some of the same things that he's achieving. I just think that's a huge encouragement. And I, applaud all the speakers that are willing to be vulnerable in that way, and share on that level. So
I think it gets rid of the loneliness too. There's a lot of loneliness because there's no one else to talk to. You feel like your employees don't want to hear this, or it's not good for them to hear it. Your clients definitely don't want to hear you dealing with this. So really it's other business owners, and giving permission to talk to each other is a big piece of it. So kudos to you, Marcel. I'm glad that you followed through with some of that. I know some of the process you've been going through personally and putting yourself out there, but stepping up in a leader in such a way, that's really great.
It was pretty awesome. And one thing that OFF did really well is that they don't want to see the content of your presentation, which is amazing. I've been to ProMax, and those gigs, they want to see your freaking presentation. We and to control what you're going to show on stage, and I hate that. It's dude, you're giving the time to me, you got to trust me. So OFF did a really good job of present yourself and do what you got to do. I don't care. You're not going to make something stupid on stage in front of a lot of people, so just be aware of that. And they did a really good job of allowing everyone to present whatever they want. But I think one thing that I wanted to highlight that to me as a conference, and to encourage you guys to go next time, not only to OFF, but go to a conference, is that the highlight of this conference for me was to hang out with my friends first and competitors. Dude, me and PJ, we had, oh my God, we talked about business, we talked about life, we talked about art. feelings, whatever. We were just having fun. I was, every day I was like, where's PJ? Like, where is this guy? Where is, like, Roger and everyone? So for 4 or 5 days, you remember that who cares about the studio that you have or whatever, like, it doesn't really matter. I have all these people here that I know, and we can all hang out, work together, and have fun. So to me, it's the highlight. So I encourage you, go next time. And yeah, that was like I'm still like missing that. I texted them all this morning.
Yeah.
I
I fully agree with that 100%. I think that's 99% of what's bringing me home a lot lighter, is just being able to hang with, and Marcel and I it's hilarious. You're joking. We lived 20 minutes from each other and have tried for 2 years to get together and had to go halfway across the world. But I think it is like, you just are like, that's what I mean earlier. Everybody was so open and just being like, okay, there's enough work. There's going to be enough work for everybody. Who knows how that's going to happen? We'll deal with the uncertainty and craziness of clients separate from studio pretend competition. And we just got to just hang, compare notes, and just vibe. And just like with other people on this call, it's incredible. And it's not like, oh, I'm too big, or I'm too good, or I'm not this or not that, or just like, fuck it, you're cool, let's hang out. Like, oh, can we swear?
You can swear. Yeah.
You can swear.
We have Marcel on. You can swear for sure. No, I love that you guys are saying that. I know when I started RevThink, it wasn't a known factor to go and talk to and make friends with your competitors. It was really cutting edge. So in the last 10 years, 12 years since I've been doing this, to watch this kind of community evolve is super exciting. And I'll say this is just the first of many conferences that are happening in the next few months. I mean, I'm heading off. Joel and I are going to do one in Belgrade in 2 weeks. So we're on tour really to just kind of kick these things going. And I think from what we heard from Motionographer, F5 might be happening in the fall, and many other things. So it's going to be a great year for these reunions to take place.
I agree. It's going to be a really cool year to see everyone getting back together. And
Ryan Summers is hitting my soft spot. He just said RevThink needs to put on their own conference. I agree. We need to find. I want to do it in the Caribbean. As long as everyone's willing to go to the Caribbean with me, yeah. PJ's like, yeah.
Exactly. Well, hey, we're at the 31-minute mark, so I'm going to adjourn here and say a huge thanks to Lidia, Marcel, PJ, Joao. Hope if you're feeling better. Who else am I missing? That was Amanda was also on stage. So thank you, Amanda. Appreciate all of you. And I can only echo the same things that PJ and Marcel were saying, that just being together with everybody and kind of doing real life, right? Business is part of it, but just doing real life with all of you is precious to me. So love you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for being here for the briefing. We'll see you next week or in the community.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.